Mr. Mayor, at 7 o'clock.
I will call the November 6th meeting to order, and I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, we thank you, Lord, for this evening to come together and conduct our business here for the town. Give us wisdom, Lord, and guidance in all that we do and all that we say. And Lord, help us tonight as the elections close and the polls close and everyone votes their conscience and their mind and their heart. Help us, Lord, that however things turn out, whatever they may be, help us to accept the fact, Lord, that is the will of the people, that is the voice and the vote of the people, and help us to come together as a nation and work together. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Next item is the reading. Just move it up some. Next item. Can y'all hear me? Is it coming right?
Bring it way up. If you bring it way up, Hardy, they'll hear you. That's right. Try that.
How's it? Can you hear it? What's wrong with you?
I hate
Now, if this one doesn't work, we know it's not the mic. Maybe you're draining the batteries.
All righty. Next item on the agenda is the reading of the minutes from October the 16th. Is there a motion for approval?
I make a motion.
I second.
Any discussion? I did. Is it right? Can y'all hear?
Yeah,
We can hear. Can they hear?
that's all.
Did you turn the thing on? Okay.
You must be.
Here, you can have mine.
On the first page of the minutes, consideration of communications, I want to say that it says on the second sentence, Mr. Brock stated that he purchased the Friarsgate Shopping Center. He didn't purchase it. He was involved in the sale of it, involved in the sale of the, I guess you call it the purchase. But if I understood him right, I don't know if y'all remember either. But I don't think he bought it. Do you know, Brent? He represented the buyer. Yeah, he represented. That's what I was thinking.
Where are we?
On consideration of communication down at the first, first page bottom where it says Mr. Brock stated that he purchased the Friarsgate. He represented the purchaser in that. And that was the only thing I wanted to change. Anything else? All in favor then of the minutes being approved as amended, do so with show of hand. Next is the administrative briefing. Mr. Brown, anything you'd like to add?
No, sir.
Any questions of Mr. Brown on the briefing? Seeing none. Next is the code enforcement update.
Good evening. Code enforcement update for October. It's to break down. We had 56 unsightly. Out of those, 52 were for high grass, 8 for collections, 22 business checks, 4 for vehicle violations that were unrelated to front yard parking as well. 146 signs were removed, 79 by Public Works. 4 animal complaints, 13 miscellaneous complaints. We had 0 illicit discharge. Under the new ordinance 1807, there were 3, and all were gained compliance within the grace period. We issued 0 tickets, and out of the 189 cases investigated by code enforcement for the month, 0 tickets. As of August, 174 residents have been issued an abatement notice. 2 were ticketed since August, and Mr. Brown has 66 properties that have been approved for pads. And the new request for the breakdown of business license, out of the 22 business license checks, 4 came in from citizens, the other 18 were found by officers on patrol.
Any questions?
The animal, the 4 that you had for animal control back there, I think you said it had 4 violations.
Yeah, 4 animal complaints.
What were those complaints?
I don't know. I can find out for you.
Okay, because we had some issues in the neighborhood where dogs were running wild and attacking other dogs and other people's property.
That was over in October?
Yeah.
That could be what it is. I can find out what the 4 animal complaints are for you.
I mean, do we resolve it, or did they issue tickets or anything like that?
If there's a dog running at large, then we tell the owner to put the dog up. If the dog bites someone, then we ticket them right then.
You take it.
Animals attacking other animals, we ticket them immediately.
What do y'all
We
lock
call
the
animal-
dog up,
We
or?
call animal control. We don't.
Oh,
have,
okay.
We don't have anywhere to put the animal in the town of Irmo.
I got you. Okay.
You want to find out what the 4 were? Or
No, I was just because I had a citizen call me about a dog attacking their animal, and
was that today?
no, this
Because
is
we had
last
one
month.
today do the same thing. That's what.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, I was the same dog. I don't know if it was the same dog or not. But anyway, they said that the dog was brought back to the person that owned it, and it's back in the neighborhood again. Nothing happened. So I'm like, what's the procedure for that?
Yeah, we'll ticket if a person's bit, we will ticket him. Animal control come out and take the dog,
Okay.
and they'll make sure they got a license and all that. Yeah.
I got you. Okay.
One question. I should know this, but I don't. Simple possession of marijuana is how much or less?
28 grams of marijuana or less.
And if it's more than that,
It's considered that you're possessing with intent to distribute it.
Okay.
You're going to sell it.
okay.
It could be under 28, but if you've got it packaged in a way that you're going to sell it off, then you can still be charged with possession with intent to distribute.
Okay.
If it's in your pocket and all bagged up and dimed out like you're going to sell it, yeah.
And
know
a
what I mean?
price on the bag.
Right, yeah. I mean, if you're selling it and you got a couple grams on you, we're going to charge you for selling it.
I don't have any chips.
Yeah.
I just was
Yeah, but if it's in
interested.
one big bundle, Kathy, if it's in one big bundle, then it's over 28 grams, then that's possession.
It must be lightweight. Is it? I'm asking.
You're asking me about marijuana?
If it's lightweight. I mean, because a bundle like that would have to be.
10 pounds. I mean, there's. A pound. I mean, I don't know how much. I don't even know how much it weighs. I'll be honest with you.
That's okay.
Yeah, I think. He may know. I don't.
He knows.
Yeah, I think
okay.
he knows. I really don't know. Yeah.
But we could always go to the nickel knowledge. A pound of feathers is heavier than a pound of gold.
George knows. He could.
454 grams of the pound.
There you go.
Oh, good. Let me write that down.
Sorry.
Unless it's gold and precious metals.
Any more questions?
no,
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is amendments to the agenda. Any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none. Next is a presentation on our audit. And,
Mr. Mayor, Town Council, thanks. It's good to be here again this year to see you guys. Here to just go over the audit very briefly with you guys and open it up to any questions you may have. Just once again, thanks to Mr. Brown and Renee here for all the hard work they did, getting us all the information to do the audit. It is a big ordeal for the town to undergo the audit. A lot of work goes into it, and it's really appreciated. It makes our job a little easier when it's that organized and that well prepared for us. Just briefly on the audit on page, the independent auditor's report is on page 1 and page 2. This tells you guys what we did in the audit. The financial statements are the town's responsibility. Our responsibility is to do the audit and express an opinion. And it's our pleasure to say that it's a clean audit opinion. So this is all the numbers in here fairly presented. The other pages I just wanted to touch on briefly are on pages 9 and 10. At the end of June 30th, 2018, the town's total assets were $11,408,806, of which approximately 4.7, almost 4.8 million is in cash equivalents for the town. The total liabilities of the town were $5,221,717, and $4,330,000 is the net pension liability that we've talked about the last couple years. Our total net position or equity in the town is $6,889,449, and that is broken down into 3 categories. We've got $6,057,595 invested in capital assets. That's the equipment, buildings, streets, and sidewalks of the town. $56,859 is restricted for victim services, and unrestricted is $774,995, and that money can be spent at the town's discretion. Okay, on page 10, if you look toward the bottom of the page, in the bottom right-hand corner, 3 numbers up, you'll see a number in parentheses. And that number is a decrease in net position of $735,060. So we had an overall decrease in the town's operations for the year, and that's related to really 3 primary categories. That was the sanitation, it was the pension adjustment that we have to adjust to every year, and then it was depreciation expense. So that accounted for the deficit for the year for the town. And I'll be glad to answer any questions.
The pension what? Would you say the pension what?
Liability.
The pension, we have to adjust to the net pension liability every year according to the state's audit. And so that's part of that decrease, if you will, of the town.
That's a terrible number.
It's, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It's not a good number for the town. The good thing is the town is still in a good financial position. You still got $4.7 million in cash and cash equivalents. You still have an unrestricted net position of almost $780,000. So you're still to the good. And I think you guys are taking steps with the sanitation and depreciation. Now the net pension adjustment is what it is every year. We don't really have any control with that.
And that sanitation, just for the record, was $419,000 that we took out of that account. So.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Where's the net cash on hand at the end of the year?
It is on page 9, and it's made up of two lines. It's cash and cash equivalents, and then equity and pooled cash. If you add those two together, I think it's roughly $4.8 million.
So that's the cash at the end of June?
At the end of June 30th, 2018, yes, sir.
And that includes our general fund cash,
Yes, sir.
our sanitation cash,
Yeah.
Yes, sir, it does.
and orchestra cash and all that other stuff as well.
In the general fund, Mayor, we had approximately $4.6 million in cash. In the what we call the ABC permit fund, the special revenue fund, we had $43,550 in cash. The capital projects fund, we had about $1,500 in cash. Now the orchestra fund, looking at it real quickly, we had $94,161 in cash.
But that 4 million included,
Includes all areas of cash within the town,
and that
Including sanitation.
sanitation.
including
has about
sanitation, which is part of the general fund balance. Yes, sir.
600,000 or something like it is now, I think.
So where's the, where is I guess the expenses from last year and the
Yes, sir.
over, under, and the revenue? Where's that? What
That
page
is
that?
on page 40, page 40.
40.
40?
That's the budget to actual comparison for the general fund.
Yeah, that's on the,
And I wanted to ask a question on that page.
Yes, sir.
I know if I look at our 17-18 budget that we approved, the dollar amounts would be a little bit different than, say, the final. Does this include what we budgeted plus what we did budget amendments for?
Yes, sir.
And everything?
Yes,
So-
sir.
Okay.
This should be the after all amendments of the budget. Yes, sir.
Okay.
so in 2017, we had a 322,000 excess, and in 2018, we had a 424 deficit.
Yes, sir.
And remember, we took about, was it 400 and some thousand out to pay the sanitation? To cover for the new increase without,
We were still
yeah.
collecting $15 a month and we were paying $19.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
And we also paid 150,000 to the fire department this year that we
That's right.
approved
For the, yeah.
about 2 years ago, I think.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
And 155,000 that we paid for the police cars this year, or last year instead of this year.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
And if you edit all that stuff back in, that means we had about a 300,000 surplus this year too, roughly, if we hadn't had those.
That's right. Without those
Allocation.
extraordinary or unusual items that you had during the year.
So wait a minute, I'm looking at, it says $424,000 deficit. Where do you get $300,000 revenue?
Well, when you add back the sanitation and you add back the capital outlay and you add back the 150,000 that you paid the fire department for the year, that was to the good about $300,000 because the sanitation was 400 plus thousand out of that one for the year.
Yeah, but I mean, what you're showing here is that there's a deficit for 2018.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
So is it a
What we're
deficit or
saying is
not?
if we hadn't had the sanitation,
Right.
we hadn't made that decision on the sanitation, and then when you add back the money that we allocated for capital outlay for police cars and other equipment, and then the 150,000 that we paid the fire department, if we hadn't had those three things, the town would have been pretty comparable with the 2017 numbers.
Any more questions? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, as always, if a question comes up, please don't hesitate to call me. I'll be glad to answer any question throughout the year for you guys, okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you, guys. Have a great evening.
You too. Next is the report on the orchestra. Yeah.
Thank you, council and mayors. I don't have as many zeros as that last gentleman in my report, so should go quicker. It was a good strut. I wanted to share with you several years ago, we passed a mission statement of the orchestra to be the purpose of the Irmo orchestra is to promote a sense of community by producing a signature family festival for all ages that showcases local talent, businesses, nonprofit organizations in the greater Irmo area. And I tell you that we showcased those like a jewel in a setting this year. It was beautiful. I can't say that without a thanks to Whit Klein for he buffed up this town. It looked great when people came in to see us this year. We had a little bit of rain that affected us way out of proportion to the amount of rain that actually fell. But as Saturday afternoon was on, we had an attendance drop. People left when it started to rain. Still financially, the report is good and sound. They're still preliminary. The numbers aren't complete. We still have a few things that we're going to, a little bit of money that's still to come in and several bills that still need to go out, not least of which will be a contract for the 2019 headline act that we intend to pay out of this year, the deposit at least out of this year's fund. So my thumbnail at this point is that when we proposed a budget and we passed a budget and operated on a budget that would have taken $10,000 out of our reserves and have us break even. Without coming out of our reserves this year, I believe we'll still be about $9,000 to the good, and that was with a rain dampened Saturday afternoon. So it's a good solid time. We have several things that we're investigating that we want to do with the funds and the excesses. We've asked Mr. Witt Klein to take a look at some path widenings that we think are going to be very beneficial for the town and the strut. I've been out there with that group that runs a little bit wider path. Maybe I'm gaining weight, or maybe there's just more of us out there, but a little bit wider path is not a bad thing out there. We also long-term want to look at maybe internet infrastructure in the park. That's not this year, but a couple years. And we also I believe we'll intend to raise our scholarship amount. Our scholarships have been fairly small amount, but out of this year. So I think we're on a very sound footing. We did some things we've never done before. For instance, the sponsorships totals of over $42,000 this year. That's a record high for us.
That's good.
We've done a lot. The community has supported it. It was a great, great orchestra. Happy to answer any questions you have if you got them now, or
You said $9,000 to the good?
that would be right. That would be if we don't go out of our into our reserves. We still have about a $9,000 excess after we even pay the deposit for this coming year.
But that's after you pay the deposit.
I'm sorry?
You said that's after you pay the deposit.
That would be after we'll pay the
So before you pay the
for
deposit, it'd be
2019.
better
That's
than
right.
nine. Yeah.
And again, that's without taking, we'd budgeted 10,000 of reserves. If you figure that, we did well. And we still have things that does not include what we would spend out of the donations portion, which is part of our budget, but that's what we'd be doing with things like the improvements to the park, and the scholarships to come.
Good.
How much did it cost to put it on?
Sir?
How much did it cost to put it on? 92,000 or 100,000?
Right. I'm actually coming that I anticipate after everything is paid, it's more like 105. That's what we're looking at.
105?
Yeah, that includes the 10 that we'd be spending on 2019, yeah.
Any question?
You still want to do it again?
I've elected in for one more year. We'll see how she goes. It's a year-by-year commitment for me, I'm glad my wife doesn't treat me that way. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Larry.
Next is item 8, presentation by citizens. This is where citizens who want to address council on things that are on the agenda may do so at this point. All we ask is you give us your name and address for the record and which items you want to speak on. Seeing none.
I have one comment.
All righty.
Last night, I got a news blip from a friend of mine, neighbor, that the town of Lexington no longer allows presentation by citizens before the agenda or after, anytime. They just did away with it. I find that interesting. We listen to people at least.
Yeah, a lot of places only have one and have it at the end.
He did away with
We started that.
both of the presentation by citizens.
That's the town.
Lexington,
But the town, not the county, right?
the town.
Yeah.
Next item is unfinished business, third and final reading of ordinance 1830, which is the Mid-Carolina contract. Is there a motion for approval?
So move.
And a second.
Second.
And Kathy, if you want to go.
This is just approval of the contract, which I think is fine, because we've already approved the franchise fee, and from the look of this audit, it's a good thing. Anyway, I think we ought to just approve the contract.
with it.
Any other discussion?
This is just a contract to allow them to charge the extra 1% that we approved
Right.
in the franchise fee. It's not that we're telling them to charge 4%. They're already charging 3. We're saying, go ahead and you can now charge 4 because we approved that.
And I think
1%.
Bob and Eric did most of this, or looked at it, or whatever.
It's actually drafted by Mid-Carolina and they are virtually identical with the exception of a couple of things in the SC&G.
Okay.
And I want to ask a question, Bob, but Eric also. In our administrative briefing, it says, third and final reading, ordinance 1830, to grant Mid-Carolina Electric non-exclusive rights to operate, provide service, and levy. Well, we voted to approve the 4%. Let's just say 3 of us voted no for this. If we already voted to give them the 4% or raise it 1%, if we vote no to this, what happens then? I mean, that's like agreeing to a contract and then turn around and...
Right, I can't tell you. I'll let Eric answer the legal part, but if we don't agree to the contract, then they will not come into town to do any work. They won't be allowed to work in town. So for
Even
fixing
at the
people...
3%?
No, I'm saying to hook people up for their electric or to fix electrical problems. That's what this is. It's also...
Wouldn't the old contract stay in effect? The 3% one?
You've amended the old contract. You amended the old contract by saying that you were moving the franchise fee up to 4%. All this is doing is saying that the town is recognizing a agreement that has been reached between SC&G and Mid-Carolina as to how they would handle the provision of electrical services to areas of the town of Irmo, which is the way they would do it whether we sign off on it or not. But we're giving it our blessing because there are some intricacies that come along when the property becomes annexed. If you had a property that was annexed, then they would have to go through a process, whereas if we have this in place, they can just say, here's the map, get on it.
But if they had a contract for 3% and we raise it, say,
They don't have a
1,
contract for 3%. It's already been raised.
We amended the old one.
well then, why are we voting on this if we've already amended it?
Because the old contract was in 1999 and it didn't address any of these things.
Oh, so they're giving us a new contract when we amended it.
That's correct.
So, let me just ask this. If I didn't want to vote for a 4%,
You've already been outvoted on that.
yeah, but I can still vote no against this, and it,
And you would in essence be voting against making it easier for them to handle new annexed properties and making it more difficult on them to handle. And you'd be voting against, just kind of updating the language in the agreement and acknowledging certain things that are different now than they were in 1999. Like there's a budget that was set forth by SC&G for putting lines underground. So they're budgeting a certain amount of the monies that they're receiving in revenues to be matched by the town. If the town decided they wanted to drop all the lines going down Lake Murray Boulevard into the ground, you'd come up with half of it and they'd have a budget for half of it within certain calculations that I can go over with you a little better by looking at the contract, but that's a general concept. Things like that. There's just little small updates for things that have occurred since the last 20 years or so.
Understand?
all ready? Any other discussion, comments, questions? All in favor then of third and final reading on ordinance 1830, do so with show of hands. All opposed? Next one is 1831, which is the same thing with SC&G. Is there a motion for approval?
So move.
And a second.
Second.
Any discussion? I won't ask the same question, so I'll just...
No, don't ask this. We're beating that dead horse. Okay.
Yeah.
What if SC&G went bankrupt or their status changed altogether? Would we have to then do this with someone else, or?
Public
just buy
Service
the
Commission
contract.
would make them accept all their liabilities and assets, right? And that would include contracts.
It'd be a piece of paper, so it'd be sellable.
I guess, yeah.
If it's any good.
I don't have much faith in them. You'd fix it, right?
Well, it would depend on how it occurred. So, I mean, if it was bankruptcy, that would be one issue in and of itself, and the way that would resolve itself would probably be a new contract with a new provider.
Yeah.
But if it was somebody, and it may not, if they acquired, say, if they purchased Scanner through a bankruptcy purchase, that would be a different, under the old contract as the successor in interest to Scanner. But if we had an entirely new entity came in and just like purchased, say, the assets of Scanna and not the Scanna liabilities, this one is messed up a little bit, Mr. Mayor. But yeah, so it would just depend on how it was done. But yes, there could be a successor that could just assume the rights and responsibilities under it. But if you had a whole new entity, then we need a whole new contract.
Good. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor then of ordinance 1831, do so with show of hands. All opposed? And next is 1832. This is the zoning change from neighborhood commercial to general commercial on Lake Murray Boulevard. Is there a motion for approval?
Make a motion.
And a second?
Second,
Any discussion?
this is that little piece of property,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
The lady that
Yeah.
bought it from.
I wish her well.
Yes.
Nope. No, we're ready.
All in favor then of third and final reading, do so with show of hands. Next is 1833. This is the off-street parking thing, the pine straw change. Is there a motion for second reading?
So move.
And a second.
Second.
Any discussion, Kathy?
I think, didn't we have a phrase to amend this to during the last? We did, okay.
Yeah, you simply agreed to take out the word pine straw.
Okay.
And leave everything else where it was.
Okay. The reason for this was the publicity. All the people who know the dangers with pine straw under a catalytic converter. I didn't want something in there that would look like we didn't care or that we wished anybody any harm or anything like that. That's why I wanted to take out the word pine straw. It may be insignificant, but it was important to me. But
Any more discussion?
it's under that section where you could actually use it if you wanted to. Okay.
Who seconded it? Barry? Oh, yeah. You want to go?
I'm good.
Okay. I wanted to find something. I was looking for it, but I'm not real sharp on this. I had received a text message. I think it was a text message, but I don't see it, so it must be I'm looking in the wrong place, where some government agency has been doing studies on catalytic converters since whenever the things came out. And they have determined that they cannot find any substantial evidence that catalytic converters cause more fires on pine straw than cars without them. So I don't know. They checked California forestry and went through stuff out there and said no. The only time catalytic converters cause more fire is when the car is not properly tuned, running on one less cylinder and it's, creating more heat than normal. But the temperatures on the catalytic converter now are no hotter than a regular muffler. And, whether it's in there or not, to me it's, I don't know, it's changing something that probably doesn't need to be changed. But whatever council wants to do is
You
fine.
said shouldn't be changed?
I don't think it should, because I don't think it is a danger, based on the stuff that somebody had sent me, that I can't find now. But
We're not changing it though. We're just taking that word out.
yeah, well, I mean, why take a word out when you can still put it in? And I don't know. To me, it's just hocus pocus. But
Well, that was
That's
not
just-
the intention.
huh?
That
Yeah,
was not
I
the
know.
intention.
But I'm just saying, to me, it's, you know, they can still put it in there because it says pervious, whatever you call it,
Right.
substract or
That's
something.
right.
We're just not condoning it. We're not saying it to town.
Well, we weren't saying it before.
Yes, you
We were
were.
telling people they could
You
use
said
this,
pine
that,
straw in there. That told them that that was approved.
Yeah.
pervious
and pine
substance.
straw would still be approved.
Right, but we're not telling them to use pine straw.
Yeah, we just.
But who are we telling now? Everybody's already put them in. Out of the 522 homes or whatever it was,
That's-
they're already done. So,
That's, okay.
but you know, that's just my argument. But so whatever council wants to do.
Bob, you had 66 pads that you approved? You approved 66 parking pads.
Yes, sir.
How many of those pads had pine straw?
I don't recall off the top of my head. I want to say 3, maybe 4.
Okay.
So any more discussion?
No, but if you Google it, pine straw and catalytic converter, there sure is a lot of information on it. But I'm
Well,
sure
this-
the government would not tell us anything wrong with their new study. I'm certain of that.
Yeah. Well, this was whoever, I don't know, automotive industry experts that do all that kind of junk, but I'll have to find it on here. I probably can.
Well, they're
it
not-
might be an email.
They're
instead of a
not going
text.
to admit it. They
Well,
build cars.
Don't forget California, when they came up with the mileage standards and whatever, we had 49 states that had the same standards. California was different.
They've always been different.
And theirs might have gotten hotter than ours. But those forest fires, according to a cousin in San Diego, were a truck that was parked in high farm grass that hadn't been baled yet that started the fire. And the
that
other
was-
fire that came from the other direction that the winds drove was arson.
And that was the bottom comment on that thing that I had was dry vegetation is going to cause more damage than pine straw. Dry vegetation being tall grass too. So I don't know.
But that could
Maybe
be
we
pine
make them
straw.
cut their grass and not park on it, then they won't cause no fires at all.
They could still use pine straw. It is anyway.
All right, let's
Yeah.
move on.
All right, all in favor then of second reading of 1833, do so show of hands. And all opposed? That was me.
That's a shock.
We got to not vote the same all the time.
Oh,
Anyway, 1834, this is the one that has to do with the DOJ reasonable accommodation ordinance that we're passing. Is there
DOJ.
a motion for second reading
So moved.
and a second?
second?
Any discussion?
You said DOJ?
Wasn't it DOJ that said we didn't have something in our stuff? Like we didn't have something in our ordinance?
That was going to be something we were going to take up at the executive session, but yes, it was one.
Or was this from HUD?
Well, it's all part of the same thing.
Okay, I think we need to make a motion that we postpone this vote until after we see what this DOJ letter is all about.
Let me make a note here.
It's just second reading.
Yeah, I want to see what this DOJ letter is all about and if it has any bearing on this
So there's a motion to defer until,
next meeting. Second reading until, what is it, December?
is there a,
December?
December something?
December
Is
6th?
there a second?
December 6th, is that it?
Or whatever the first meeting in December is.
But that would be third reading, so it's,
I don't want to change stuff on third reading. I want to know what I'm changing on second reading so we have a chance to look at it. we get in trouble when we do that. In
So we have a motion to defer until the next meeting, December 4th. Is there a second? All right, motion dies. Now, we can defer it until after executive session if you want to do that.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, you want to take it out of, suspend the rules and take it out of order?
Well, I mean, we can just defer it until after executive session, or we can take executive session out of order and do it now. But
All right,
I'd rather-
let's do that then. Let's take the executive session out of order. Because I don't know what this is all about, and I need to know. I don't think anybody knows what it's all about. Yeah.
Pat Donovan knows.
So let me just think a minute. So there's a motion to, let's make a motion to defer and to suspend the rules
And do the executive
and
session?
do executive session
Okay.
now. And that's, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of deferring this and suspending the rules and taking executive session out of order and doing executive session now, do so with show of hands.
And leave your mics.